George Kirby's got some splits that make absolutely no sense. So check this out. Going into his start on Sunday, these were his numbers against teams with a winning record. He had a 181 ERA, 086 whip, and was striking out just over 9.5 batters per nine. Really good. Against teams with a losing record this year, 481 ERA, 120 whip, and just over 6.5 strikeouts per nine, with just about equal innings thrown on each side of this coin. What in the world is going on with that?
I have some theories. First theory, which is more funny, does he just get bored?
Well, I would hope not, because you still need to win those games against the bad teams.
Well, that's my joking theory. I have a real theory, though, because if you take a look at this, there's no real correlation between the bad teams he's facing. It's like, okay, so say all the bad teams he's facing are like at least very elite contact-oriented teams who don't strike out a bunch, don't walk a lot, and hit balls in the strike zone really well. Well, that's not really the case. I mean, you can make that the case. The Royals still do, though, strike out a very decent amount. They're in the bottom 15 of strikeouts. But the other two teams that, the notable blow-up appearances he's had, I mean, he struggled against the Tigers this year. He struggled against the Pirates at home on a Friday night. Those are all in the bottom 15% in strikeout rate. So those aren't exactly like contact-oriented teams. It's not like running into hot offensive teams. Like the Pirates, Royals, Tigers are all in the bottom 10 in like isolated power, like in terms of like a power surge, like fluky home runs. That's not the case. And it's not the case of, again, like running into good offensive teams. All these teams that he struggled against, like a struggling outing against the Royals, against the Tigers, against the Pirates, those are all bottom 5 offenses by WRC+. And yet they had a lot of success against a guy people are going to give Cy Young votes to this year. Now, why is that? So I have a theory. And that this is the case of George Kirby throwing too many strikes in this case. Does that sound crazy?
I don't know if it sounds crazy. Keep going. Try and sales pitch me on this.
So if you think about this, so George Kirby's greatest asset is that he throws a lot of strikes. But what helps a struggling offense more than anything? It's getting pitches to hit. And the best pitches to hit are always in the strike zone. George Kirby throws more pitches in the strike zone than most pitchers in baseball. And as we know, he's not really a strikeout artist, for example. He'll have outings where he's going to get some punch outs, but overall his whiff percentage is in the 26th percentile. His strikeout rate is right in the middle of baseball at the 46th percentile. That's why location is so important to him. But if he's just throwing a bunch of strikes and not getting a lot of whiffs, like sometimes can happen with his stuff, that might help worse teams hit him. So the Pirates, the Royals, and the Tigers, who are not good offensive teams, suddenly get a pitcher who's just going to fill up the strike zone. And eventually some of their swings are going to connect because those are the best pitches to hit. And he likes throwing fastballs, and fastballs in the zone are usually the best pitches to hit no matter who throws them.
My only counter to this is, why then does he still thrive against better offenses in baseball when he still isn't generating swing and miss?
Because there's a difference between filling up the strike zone and throwing quality strikes in the strike zone. You can throw a bunch of pitches on the edge and throw quality strikes, or you can throw a bunch of pitches that catch a lot of plate and get hit really well, which is why I think that. And if you think it's like, okay, well, he's a guy who has 4 pitches, throws up to 98, and has the best command in baseball, you could argue. Right, that's why he succeeds against good teams, which is, I think, a little bit easier to sales pitch than what I originally pitched you of why he's struggling. An example I have for you on why quality strikes matter so much. 8-17 against the Royals. That was the start in Kansas City. He threw 72.9% of his pitches in the strike zone. That was 72.9% fastballs. 75% for off-speed pitches. Those two marks that he threw were highest. That was a high mark of fastballs and off-speed pitches he's thrown in the strike zone in a game this season. And coincidentally, a more contact-oriented team, but still sort of bottom offense like the Kansas City Royals tend to hit those pitches more because he did not get an in-zone whiff on his fastball that entire game. So threw a bunch of pitches in the strike zone, but were not the most quality pitches, so they get hit a little bit more. So that's it. That was a bit of a long-winded answer, but in short, he sometimes throws too many strikes, and they're not quality strikes, and then gets hit.
I think his whiff rate is just going to have to continue to build up as his time in the big leagues goes on. Because if there's any room for improvement for George Kirby, even though he's already so talented and phenomenal as it is, he could miss some more bats. And against some of these more struggling offenses, it gives him more chances to hit, like you're outlining here. Now, I still scratch my head at why the difference is this drastic. Why, for example, he'll go out and throw 9 shutout innings against the Orioles, by record the best team in the American League, but then he'll go out and struggle against the Royals, against the Pirates, against the Tigers. It's just a head scratcher. I understand what you're saying, and I do agree with some of it, that maybe all of the strikes begin to add up, but it still is odd that against teams that are so much better, he's putting up an ERA of sub-2. I don't know. It's just one of those weird things to me. Maybe it's one of those things you can't quantify and it doesn't make sense. It's just one of those things that happens.
Maybe George Kirby's really trying to be like James Shields and earn a nickname like Big Game George, but then against all the other teams, it just doesn't matter to him. Maybe.
And you look at the outing against the Astros, you look at the outing against the Orioles, you look at his numbers against some of the other high-quality teams this year, and he just buzzsaws right through them. But then some of these other starts, it doesn't happen. I will say, to be fair, I have this Pirate start outlined on our show prep, including which was his worst outing of the season by runs, where he gave up 7 runs against the Pirates in 4 2/3 innings pitched. If you remember that game, I'm still almost positive the balls were juice that night because balls were flying out of the park left and right in Seattle that day. But yeah, I don't know. I'll be interested to see how this fares even next year moving forward if this continues. But the good news for Kirby, and if you happen to believe in these splits, is he's not going to have many more starts against bad teams. He's going to be facing quality teams the rest of the way. So maybe that's good news for him.
So maybe Kirby, when he saw that he was going to get a matchup against the A's last week on a night that you earned yourself a lifetime ban from attending Monday through Thursday T-Mobile Park baseball games, was that he realized, well, I might get blown up against these guys, so I'm actually going to try and face a better opponent on the weekend, which didn't work again. It actually kind of went against his splits a little bit more when he only threw 3 innings on Sunday. So I don't know. Maybe he thought about it.
Well, then maybe I shouldn't be banned from the park. If he purposely tried to sit out of that game, then it's not my fault. That was a self-made decision.
Well, last I checked, George wasn't the only person who got scratched that night.
Well, that part is fair.
Yeah.
TBD.
Yeah, okay. You keep telling yourself that.